Hey everyone, it's Mike from BGN. Before the show starts, I wanted to quickly tell you about a very special new sponsor that we have at the network, Golden Goal Press. Now, I've intentionally been very selective about who we partner with as a network because I never want to advertise for someone that we don't think would benefit you personally. That's why Roughneck Scarves is and continues to be a great sponsor, as they've been able to outfit tons of supporters groups and organizations with amazing scarves. Golden Goal Press is unique because after researching tons of companies, we decided the best way to serve your needs directly is to create a new company that can work directly with you. Golden Goal Press helps you create custom shirts, hats, mugs, flags. Literally, the list of items can go on, and we do it with a unique personal touch that provides you with the best products at a fraction of the cost of other print shops online. So the next time you're looking for one custom item or hundreds, please go check out goldengoalpress.com. As always, we appreciate your support. And now, on with the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Raising Bulls, brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network and Roughneck Scarves. We are the only podcast dedicated to the New York Red Bulls 2 of USL. Tonight, we're going to talk about not a lopsided week, but big victory over Hartford midweek, and then the first loss of the season against Loudoun United on the weekend. Not great. Then we're going to be joined by everyone's favorite name in USL. It's Rece Buckmaster. And then we're going to preview the match this weekend against Indy 11 with Brian Cook, also of the Beautiful Game Network. If you have not read any of his stuff over there, it's very, very good, particularly around the politics of the stadium issues in Indy. But we'll get to all that later. Joining me tonight, for the first time in quite a while, I think, it's Joe Steen. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Good, Joe. How are you? Good to be back. I know I've uncharacteristically missed a couple of shows this year, but I'm back and happy to be back.
Well, they're working you like a dog. I understand. So let's jump into this. Let's talk about the Hartford match. Not a lot really to be learned here. Hartford came into the match winless. And defensively a mess. They went out of this match winless and defensively a mess. The team, I thought, performed really well on short rest. Sometimes integrating MLS players is a little bit tricky, but they really got the job done.
Yeah, I think you have to give a lot of credit to John Wolniak on this game because, like you said, it is very hard to rotate in MLS players coming from the first team. I think they also had some academy guys in there as well. So I think he did a really good job getting his squad prepared. He's talked about the depth of this team this year to start the year, which is very important going forward. And they got off to a little bit of a slow start in the first half. I mean, they created a couple chances early, and then it seemed like Hartford kind of prevented them from really doing anything. But in the second half, after Stroud's chip, they really opened up the game. They looked great going forward. It seemed to really get a confidence boost for them. And then Tom Barlow grabs another goal to add to his total. I mean, he really had 6, but they're not counting the Birmingham goal because the game unfortunately got postponed due to the weather. But I thought they did a really good job. It was good to see Jared get a goal after all the hard work he's put in for the team this year. And I really think, one thing that really wasn't talked about after that game was the fact they kept a clean sheet. I mean, I know Hartford really hadn't scored a lot of goals this year so far, but even getting a clean sheet is a good sign for the defense going forward.
Yeah, and now granted, it was Ryan Mara in net, but I think if Evan Laura was there, you would have seen a similar result. That Stroud chip was hilarious because once he put it up, I was sure it was going over. I asked him after the match about it. He said he thought it was going in, but I'm not so sure. The other thing in that match that I want to touch on briefly, Edgardo Rito makes a beautiful run through two defenders, gets to the end line. And we've seen this a lot with Red Bull players over probably the last decade, of guys who get to the end line and then have no idea what to do. And Rito just has this beautiful back heel pass to Derek Etienne to assist his goal. And I was not prepared for it. I give him a ton of credit for seeing the opportunity and for having the chutzpah to pull it off.
Yeah, he's been impressive whenever he's gotten minutes this year, I think he's impressed a good deal going forward. And I think that's something that maybe Alan Giannis doesn't really offer a lot of going forward. I think his positioning defensively and everything Giannis does defensively is good. But if they need someone off the bench to give them a little bit of a spark going forward, I think Rito is that guy this year.
See, and the funny thing is, if you asked me this a week ago, I would tell you that I didn't necessarily think a lot of him going forward. So it could also just be him settling down and kind of getting more used to sort of the reps and his responsibilities with the team. But yeah, definitely some good returns from him so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think all their fullbacks have done a good job, and I think that was a position that we were kind of unsure of going into the season because, with the departures of, Ethan Cutler, and we weren't sure if Giannis was going to sign or not. And then, we weren't really sure what they were going to have going forward. And I think Rece Buckmaster has made some great overlapping runs. And as far as joining the attack, and I think, despite his size, he's actually shown that, he can, he is quite a workhorse in defense too.
And somewhat interesting, talking to Buckmaster, and you'll hear this later on in the podcast. He was not a fullback until essentially 2 years ago. So it's not a dissimilar situation to what we've seen with Cutler and some other guys in the past that have transitioned from spots further up the field to the back. But certainly in terms of quality, I think he's been better than any of those other guys. Let's talk man of the match for that Hartford match. Who you got?
I would probably say Jared Stroud. He put in a ton of work in that game, and his goal opened up the game for them a ton. So I'd definitely give it to him.
And I believe he had an assist in that too, didn't he? Assist on Tom Barlow's goal.
He did, yeah, he did. Yeah. So a goal and assist, and another really good shift from him. So you really can't. I don't think there's really any other choice except for him.
Yeah, fully agree. I'm going to give it to Stroud. And then the not-so-great game of the weekend. It was the first mini Atlantic Cup match between New York Red Bulls 2 and Loudoun United, the DC United affiliate. It seemed like it was going to be a good day. Right out of the gate, Matthias Jorgensen, who was getting his second start with Red Bulls 2, gets down the field, makes a nice run to the near post, redirects the ball in and off the goal post, and they're up 1-0 inside of 5 minutes. And, I think I'm not alone in thinking that everyone was prepared for a big win over a team that could, be a rival down the road. I think actually with Hartford or Loudoun, they could be rivals down the road. And not quite what we got, was it?
No. I really, the biggest thing that was a question mark in this game was their set piece defending was not good for most of the game. I know they hit the crossbar twice off of corners, I believe, and then they grabbed a goal from I think it was their fifth corner in the match, and that was just I had no idea what. I mean, they let the ball goes over, everybody bounces, and then it's just it results in a goal, and then. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of credit given to Loudoun for responding the way they did after the goal. But Red Bulls 2 were very sloppy in the first half, and it really didn't seem like they ever got going in the first half. And then they come out in the second half. They had so many chances to equalize this game. I mean, Barlow was 1-on-1. I also didn't mention that Stroud missed an open goal in the first half. Yeah. And you would have thought that they probably should have grabbed an equalizer, and if they grabbed one, they were more than likely favored to win the game. But then, counterattack, a simple counterattack and a simple cross in the box, and Buckmaster's kind of caught a little, by a much bigger body on the back post, and then they, which was it was a nice diving header. But I mean, I think they should be hard done by. I think they would feel a little bit hard done, but by the result. But I don't think John Wozniak was necessarily happy with how this team performed because, yeah, it was their third game in 7 days, but he talked about the depth and he felt like his squad was, ready for this game or prepared for this game, and they just didn't seem like they ever were going to. It seemed like they had a plenty of chances, but they were never going to take them.
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna say that I think Kyle Zayats, who started midweek and this match. Midweek, he did very, very well. This was a little bit more of a physical match, and, maybe he wasn't quite up to that challenge. There was definitely a lot of sloppiness. They had trouble moving the ball up the field, which is very unusual for this team. We haven't seen that very often. And Loudoun, yeah, they absolutely responded. They were very ready to get this, and it was their first win. You mentioned the Stroud miss. Barlow has a terrible miss in the second half. He has the opportunity to lay it off to Jorgensen and does not.
Yeah.
And, I think that was the moment where the game kind of ended for this team. Because from there, they had a couple more opportunities, but they never quite got back to that level of play. I think when Barlow first came on, the team responded really well. They woke up, they created a lot of opportunities, and then that miss was just really, really rough. But also give credit to, I can't remember his first name. His last name is Brown, the keeper for Loudoun United. I thought he played a great match, stood on his head at times, made a lot of great saves. And, all in all, if you look at the two misses that Red Bull had and the number of shots that Brown saved, this could have been a 6-3 match. But just Loudoun gets the better of them on the day. What else do I want to mention in this? Janos Luba gets his first start, gets the assist on the goal. I thought, offensively, he did a lot of really good stuff and got involved in the attack. Defensively, I think they targeted him a little bit. And a lot of their attacks and what led to several of their corner kick opportunities came from targeting that left side. And then the last bit, which you mentioned, where they struggled on the set pieces, we've seen in the past where this team struggles with their zonal marking, and they were absolutely doing it against Loudoun. Loudoun approached it perfectly by running at the space and found a lot of good opportunities. So, yeah, and not the greatest match for the team, but I think they're definitely learning some very strong lessons from the way that it all played out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of these guys, are new to the team. I mean, we've seen, I think, like you mentioned with Janis Lube, I thought he had I thought he was very good going forward, but like you said, they really targeted him in that first half. And, I thought in the second half he actually performed better. I think he settled down a little bit and did a good job, but a lot of their opportunities they really didn't go after Buckmaster's side until literally that cross on the third goal. Came to where Buckmaster was supposed to be defending, but the center back for the most part, except for the set pieces, I thought Jordan Scarlett's distribution in the match was, he made some really nice passes from the back, but like you mentioned, I really think they missed Chris Lima in this game because they missed that guy in the deep midfield that could get the ball to Stroud and who could get the ball and he could get the ball to the forwards as well, because Jean-Christophe Kofi had his moments in this game where he was impressive, and then he had his moments where he was caught in possession, and then, he continues to. You get a little bit of some good and some bad from him. I don't really think he's settled in yet.
Yeah, and I could see that. I think in the attack he did pretty well, especially the opening goal kind of develops from a moment where Kofi's running at the defense, and he just holds onto the ball for a second, waiting for his man to step to him, and as soon as he does, he dished off to Janos Luba, who was making the run down the left side.
He also made, I forget which chance it was. I think Brown made a really good save on this one, too. I think it was to Lube where I think it was a crossfield pass where he he spotted him on the back post. That pass was great too.
Yeah, agree.
But I mean, there was just some moments that where you get a little nervous watching him because he doesn't realize, him and Zayat didn't realize there was they pressed them from behind and got on their backs, and they were lucky to not be caught in possession a few times in that game.
Yeah, fully agree. The last thing I want to mention from this, during the match, I think it kind of came directly after the Barlow miss. As Barlow's running up, he has the opportunity to pass it off to Matthias Jorgensen. And we mentioned him earlier, but congrats on getting your first goal, Matthias. But from that point, there seemed to be a change in Jorgensen, and it wasn't that good. He seemed to be maybe even getting into it a little bit with his teammates. And after the match, I have no idea what the content of the conversation was because I was not over there talking to them, but John Wolyniec and Jorgensen had a long conversation after or outside the locker room, and it looked animated. Didn't necessarily look angry, but it was a long conversation where I've never really seen Wolyniec have talks like that with guys after the match, and it definitely stood out. Now, I would like to have been a fly on the wall to hear what was going on, but something tells me it had to do with the way that the match finished up, because it definitely seemed like Jorgensen got into it a little bit with his teammates and maybe even drifted out of the game somewhat. Not necessarily saying like he gave up or something, but something changed in the match after that miss.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, he made a lot of good runs in this match that I think his teammates didn't spot his runs or couldn't get the ball to him. And there was some frustration, but I mean, you have to be able to finish the match. I mean, there was definitely some moments where like they could have used him in the attack and he didn't seem interested, or their frustration boiled over. But I thought he and D'Souza actually worked pretty well because Jorgensen made the runs and D'Souza kind of played behind him. But yeah, after that Barlow miss, like you said, he seemed really not into the game.
Yeah, and I'll get to Amarildo in a minute, but with Jorgensen, I think I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's 18 years old. He certainly didn't expect to be playing with Red Bull 2, so I think there's maybe even a little bit of frustration there, depending on where he is in the system and fitness and how sharp he is. But also, hopefully he uses this as a good learning opportunity. And Amarildo, I thought, he played underneath okay, but one of the things I really liked from him in the preseason was how well he pressed and just made a nuisance of himself, and we haven't really seen that from him at the USL level yet, and I would like to see more of it. Who's your man of the match for this one?
Man, if I had to pick one, I think Yanis Lube deserves consideration. I thought he a lot of the chances going forward developed from his side, so I'll give him a shout.
Okay, I'll agree with that. I'll give it to him. Even though he was on the receiving end of a lot of dangerous attacks, when he went forward, he looked pretty good. Okay, we're going to take a break now. When we come back, you're going to get to listen to my interview with Rece Buckmaster, so stick around. And we're back. We are joined now by first-year defender and I would say probably best name on the team. It's Rece Buckmaster. Rece, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Do you get teased about your name at all?
Yeah, of course. A lot of people, talk about my name. It's like a big talking point. So, I mean, it's not really teasing. They're just saying some things about it, but it's all good.
Do you get any? Has there been a good nickname, or is the name so good that it really defies a nickname?
I mean, with this team, however long I've been here, 2 or 3 months, I've heard more nicknames than I've ever heard in my life.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about the start of your playing days. How old were you when you first started kicking a soccer ball?
Honestly, my mom just showed me a picture of my first pair of cleats that she kept, and they were super small. I don't know what size they were, so I couldn't tell you, but I honestly think she told me I started playing when I was probably 3 or 4. And then ever since then, I've always played soccer.
And I assume you started rec and then moved to travel. Did you play with any academy teams?
I played with the Indiana Fire Academy in Westfield, Indiana.
And how many years were you there?
All 4, all through high school I was there.
Well, then obviously that's how you ended up at the University of Indiana. Did any of the coaching staff have any overlap or any common elements?
Not my academy coach played at IU, but not really. I grew up always wanting to go to Indiana. That was my dream school to just play there. And yeah, that's how it all started. I just really wanted to go showcase Indiana University as since I'm from Indiana, just always wanted to stay close to home and play for my dream school.
What made it your dream school?
Just the tradition there. It's a big soccer school, and I just always wanted to stay close to home so my parents could come watch me play and stuff. And
while you were there, walk us through some of your favorite moments and things that happened.
Well, my first 2 years was a little struggle. I mean, it wasn't really a struggle. I just didn't really play that much. I just had to earn my time. So that was hard for me because playing in the academy, I grew up always playing in the midfield too, which was a big shock to me because I always played the 10 or the 8. And then transforming my junior and senior year, I played right back, which was a brand new position for me. I really only played it a spring before I jumped right into the fall playing my junior year, which is crazy. But obviously the last 2 years we had, my junior and senior year, we made pretty good runs in the NCAA tournament. And then the last year winning the Big Ten tournament and the Big Ten regular season, which is pretty awesome. And then 2 Final Fours, which were great.
And
just coming up a little bit short.
Yeah, of course.
But other than that, they were really awesome 4 years.
What facilitated that switch to right back? Was it strictly to get time on the field, or was it something that maybe a coach was watching your game and thought it might be a good place to put you?
Yeah, that's what it was. Honestly, just towards the end of my sophomore year, the midfield we had was I wasn't really going to find much time in there, and then the right back was leaving, and head coach just was "You're one of the best defenders playing the 6, so I think we're going to try you out at right back because you're fast and you'll quickly pick up that position." And then he's "This is the position you're going to make it at the next level, so might as well get you started now." So that was kind of awesome. Then he put me there, and then it actually worked out.
And I guess so. He's talking about you as a pro at that point. Was that maybe always in the plans for you, or was that the first time you really started thinking about it?
I mean, my dream was always to be a professional soccer player, so I've always wanted to have that. But I mean, the way my first 2 years went, I didn't really think I was going to make it that far. But then once I switched and started playing and everybody just believing in me, my family and everything, I just, it just clicked. So I was positive.
And heading into the draft, what were your thoughts? Did you expect to be drafted as high? You were 32? Is that correct?
Yes.
So did you expect to be drafted so high?
I mean, honestly, I thought I had a pretty good combine, but I mean, obviously, you have no idea what what teams need, where you think you're going to end up. So I mean, I mean, I couldn't tell you where I was going to get drafted or when, but I'm just glad I did get drafted by such a great organization, you know?
And what was the moment like when you found out?
Just joy. Because, I mean, sitting there in the waiting room was pretty stressful, just waiting to hear your name. And then once it gets called, it just brought so much joy to my mom and my dad that were sitting there, and then to me getting to walk up on stage and get my jersey and my picture and taken and everything, and then talking to the press was just a dream come true.
I can imagine that's really stressful, sitting around basically waiting to see if someone's going to hire you. Were you talking to any other athletes?
So we had like a lot of guys go pro for my team last year. We had I think 10 out of the 11 starters all went pro, or they all left, and most of them went pro. And I talked to Grant Willard. He's at the Fire. I talked to him a lot the past 2 years, and then just my teammates Andrew Gutman, he signed with Celtic, and a lot of guys just signed USL, and I've always just been talking to them, just keeping up and keeping in touch with all of them.
So you did not travel to Charlotte, right? Or were you in that match? There was too many games last week. So you got to see Gutman. How was that?
Yep. It was cool. We got to play against each other, which was really awesome.
That's good.
And growing up, I played right back, so he's a left back. I was going to go up against him, but I played left back that night, so I didn't get to go up against him, which would have been a fun matchup. But it was still good to see him and talk to him. And after the game and stuff, we switched jerseys, so I got his jersey and he got mine, so it's pretty cool.
Going to preseason with this club, what was that like? And I mean, obviously you have the experience of coming in fresh with a group of guys for the year, but obviously it's a little bit different at the pro level.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when we went to Florida, it was a big change for me. Just the pace was so much faster, and the guys are a lot better and things like that. So it was a big change for me, but you said I adapt quickly and get used to it and get up to pace with everybody. So, but it was a good learning experience. And then going to Arizona, the same thing, just getting to know all the guys personally, just a great group of guys. And then on the field, just learning from the best.
And day one, you came out of the gates starting, which I think when you look at the personnel of the group, it's not a big a surprise necessarily, because I think you stood out in preseason. But what was that feeling like for you?
It's like a dream come true. Getting to play your first professional game and getting a start is something I'll always remember. And with this team, just playing every game with them has been a dream come true. And just excited for the rest of the season, see where we end up.
And this week, you guys are coming up against Indy 11. It's probably, in terms of maybe preseason expectations, one of the most difficult opponents that you guys faced so far. Mm-hmm. What's the conversation been like so far this week in terms of how you're going to tackle that game?
Well, we haven't really scouted them yet, so I think we're doing that, Friday, so we'll know more. But John expects us to watch film on them and everything, so I was going to plan on attacking that tonight after this phone call. So I haven't really got to look into them much, but I know a couple guys on that team, so I know how they play, and I know the coaching staff pretty well. Because one of the assistant coaches is actually my academy coach at Indiana Fire, so I know sort of how they'll play. So it'll be interesting to see them.
That is really interesting. Did not know that.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, we're going to subject you to the lightning round. Many have faced it, and pretty much everyone has passed. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Popcorn, yes or no?
Yes. Love popcorn.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars. Never really seen Star Trek.
Okay, fair enough. Marvel or DC?
Probably DC.
Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog?
Ooh, Mario. I was a big Mario fan growing up, so gotta go to Mario.
Who is your favorite team to play as in FIFA?
Favorite team? Probably be Tottenham.
Okay.
That's my overall favorite team, too.
Oh, boo. No, I don't hate the Spurs. And I call this one the Derek Etienne Award. We're going to give this to whoever gets the most votes by the end of the season. Who is the worst dancer on the Red Bull 2 team?
Worst dancer? Probably me. I can't dance. I can't sing. I can't really do anything. So I would go with myself, honestly.
A very humble answer. I like it, Rece.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we wish you nothing but the best this weekend.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, get to watching that game film. And for the rest of you, when we come back, we're going to preview that game with Brian Cook, so stick around. And we're back with our final segment. We're going to be previewing the match against Indy 11. We've got Brian Cook with us, but first I'm going to do our rundown of the team. Indy 11 is 4-1-0 on the year. They won against Bethlehem Steel, Swope Park Rangers, Hartford, and Charlotte, many teams that we're also familiar with. Their lone loss of the season, that opening match against St. Louis, who is surprising USL, understandably. This is a talented team, guys. Their goals leader, Dane Kelly, who you guys might remember is one of the best West Coast goal scorers from last season, and Neville Hackshaw and Thomas Enevoldson each have 2. And then leading on the assists, Kenny Walker, formerly of FCC. Brian, this team is super stacked. I think they are set up for a good run this season. Walk us through how everything's going so far.
When the season started, and first of all, it was a weird transformation going from 2018 to 2019, because obviously the 2018 Indy 11 team, the way it was built, it was kind of like throwing as many things into a shopping cart and getting out of the store as quickly as possible.
Supermarket sweep.
2019 was a slight adjustment for both the team and fans, because instead of watching a team get built in about, 3 weeks, you actually got to see signings that made sense. And I'll be the first to admit, anybody that followed me on Twitter knew that when Enevoldson and Dane Kelly got signed, my first thought was, oh man, those expectations are going to go straight up in the air.
Yeah.
So it's gone really well. This team is growing, and I think the biggest thing that it has benefited them is that they have had a lot of success, but they have grown over time, and I think that's going to be the theme for 2019.
I mean, they have a ton of talent in this squad, and I think just from last year to this year, when you watch the games, this isn't a slight necessarily on last year's team, but I think overall there's a lot more fluidity in the attack. Having so many dangerous weapons is obviously a big plus. They've been very good on set pieces this year. And just overall, I think just in terms of pure entertainment value, they are far exceeding what they did last year. How do you feel that they're living up to the expectations they set forth starting the season with so many, big pieces?
Well, the biggest thing that kind of made, and it started in the preseason, but the biggest thing that made me nervous right initially was the formation, because I've never been a coach. I'll probably never be in that kind of line of work. Hopefully that seems real shaky and nerve-wracking. But I'm very much a traditionalist with how I see tactics, and that kind of centers back on a 4 at the back system. So when the preseason started this year and you saw Indy deploy a 3-4-3, 3-4, whatever combination of forwards up top, I was like, oh. And I've been told by a couple people that the 3 at the back system was actually something that Martin Rennie wanted to deploy last year, but between injuries and just generally not having the personnel to do that, he wasn't able to do that.
So it's been interesting to watch because you go back to that St. Louis game, and even in a short amount of time between, the St. Louis game, even just to the Hartford game, the team's starting to play with more fluidity, like you had mentioned. And I think that's honestly the biggest thing that they have to work with in order to succeed, is to use the pace that they have on both ends of the field. And just kind of learn to trust each other, which I think over time is going to be what honestly causes them and gives them the most amount of success too. So to answer your question, I think they're starting to meet those expectations. I think at the beginning everybody was like, oh, let's see how this works out. But I think they're starting to meet those expectations.
I will tell you, having watched that St. Louis game, my first thoughts were, they've spent too much time worrying about how they were going to attack, and their defense isn't quite up to it. Because, there was a little bit of trouble clearing balls. They got caught kind of in scrambles, which I didn't necessarily think. I don't think that they necessarily painted the picture of the match, but, it was just them kind of getting caught. Since then, they've been a little bit, I think, more responsible in terms of not getting caught in those kinds of ways. My scouting on them, obviously, I mentioned the danger on set piece opportunities. They've got a ton of speed in the counterattack when they need to. And one of the things I noticed a lot as they're in those kinds of, 2 or 3 headed runs, they've been lofting the ball, kind of switching fields as they get into the box and creating a lot of danger that way. You think that's fair? What am I missing from the scouting attack?
Well, for me, because I went back recently, I say recently, it's whatever day, but I went back and watched that Steel game, and when you go back and watch, and actually the best tool that I've had looking back statistic-wise was actually the FootMob app, which has kind of turned into my new second screen app, just because it's given me a lot more insight that I didn't have before. And one of the big statistics, like you had mentioned, that I noticed was the long balls, which even when you go back for Indy 11, when you go back to 2015 and 2016, the NASL teams, that was always the biggest critique that most fans had, was they hated the long balls. But for this team, and I never thought Indy 11 would end up being this team, just because even way looking back 2015, 2016, I never envisioned a team that would be so centered around the counterattack. But especially this past week, you saw guys like Tyler Pasher and Dane Kelly and Volton get forward so quickly. This team relies on both counterattacks and that long ball to just punish defenses whenever they can break down and get a little bit of space. So I think when you look at the attack-wise, if you can shut down their counterattack and you keep Dane Kelly from getting any sort of confidence, which at this point is pretty difficult because he's getting real confident, which Martin Rennie had said. I think even go back to the Hartford game, he said that's the only thing Kelly's missed, was he hasn't had that confidence. But on the defensive side, Indy 11, almost as good as they are with the counterattack, they're almost as bad defending against a counterattack. Yeah. I think I don't have the proof for it, but when I go back and look at some of the goals they conceded back to even the St. Louis game, some of the goals they conceded were primarily based on teams that were not even outpacing them, but were rushing them back to the point where, and it's kind of the issue with the 3 at the back system. They were rushing them back where, players didn't know where they needed to stand. It was kind of like, Ricky Bobby, not knowing what to do with your hands. Right. They get back defensively and they're like, where am I going? What am I doing? And that's kind of how teams have to, and teams have scored against Indy this year, is been able to just disrupt them defensively, because not only do they have to rely on those 3 guys to get back, but then do you trust Iose to drop back? Which one of the wingers do you drop back to get that 4 at the back structure. So defensively, when you scout Indy, that as good as they are with attacking with a counterattack, they are really, really bad at defending a good counterattack.
Okay, I think that's pretty fair. And going back to the Dane Kelly confidence thing, I mean, Swope Park did the easiest confidence boost that they could possibly do for Kelly, and just let him walk it into the goal.
It's weird too, because I look back at the Swamp Park game, and then I look back at the Hartford game, and as weird as it sounds, Hartford to me was more of a trap game than the Swamp Park Rangers game, just because Hartford tactically could still set up and statistically looked like a team that could still end up hurting even an Indy 11 that had is growing and getting much more success. But that Swamp Park game I was like, oh, this isn't even fair. I'm like, this is fun for me as a fan to watch and stuff, but I'm like, I feel bad.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I mentioned this on the show last week with Hartford, that their attack, I mean, they are capable of creating opportunities, but they just don't finish. I think they've already outshot the Red Bulls, which is really unusual because the Red Bulls take so many shots per season. It's ridiculous. Joe, I'm hogging everything. I'm sorry. Justine, get some questions in.
So you've talked about how great they are on the counter and how much speed they have going forward. Would you compare this to maybe a team like Louisville City last year, where they were very quick and able with Lancaster and Speedy Williams, and how dangerous they were going forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's probably a fair comparison. I hate going back and trying to compare teams to other teams, because I feel like there's never. Soccer's a weird sport because I really don't know if you get a fair one-to-one comparison as much as you might get in a different sport. But yeah, and I mean the interesting thing to me is during the preseason when you saw Elijah or Illick get signed from Louisville City, and you saw Dane Kelly come in, you kind of saw what would be lined up, or what tactically in the forwards would get lined up. But honestly, this past week, and I don't know if going forward it will be what happens. I don't know if it was primarily rotation based. But Tyler Pasher, to me, has been, even when you look at a Dane Kelly who scored 3 goals and had an assist in 2 games last week, Tyler Pasher played out of his mind. The guy's coming off of a neck injury last year that kept him out most of, I think, most of the second half of the season. So to me, it's nice to see attacking-wise the depth that they can have. Even on paper, you saw the depth, to know that you aren't relying on the people you solely signed to do the attacking, and you can slot in a Tyler Pasher next to Dane Kelly. And at times, Tyler Pasher is outpacing Dane Kelly.
And we've all know about the big names and everything. Who is one player that you think is not talked about enough as far as the team goes for what he does?
Well, like I said, I think the 2 people, because on paper you look at the guys that are scoring goals, and I feel like they probably get a majority of the publicity. I think the 3 players for me, because of course I can't listen and I have to disobey the rules, and I can't just choose one. But 3 players to me that have really impressed me that I didn't expect this from. Tyler Pasher, like I said, he obviously coming off of a neck injury and being able to last week just slot in and play a role. He's traditionally a winger. And he did really, really well in that wing position last year. But I've just been really impressed because he's almost kind of played a false 9, where at times he almost dropped back to the midfield, where you almost added like a 5th midfielder. Eugene Starkov, even though he didn't really play last week, was a guy that when I saw in Olsen and Dane Kelly on paper at the beginning of the season, I said they need a playmaker that's underneath there that can create for both of them. Even though Voltson's got the ability to create create. You obviously signed the second place Golden Boot participant last year in the league's all-time goal scorer with the intent of both of them scoring goals. So you kind of need that playmaker. I feel like Starkov should do that and has done that. The other guys, I almost feel bad just because I didn't know a whole lot about him, or at least I didn't scout him that much this season. But Hackshaw has been a blessing for this team with set pieces. And I didn't think that they would have such a good piece to use for set pieces. But even the set piece that he scored against the Bethlehem Steel this past weekend, it wasn't his like a header or anything. It was just, you don't expect a defender to have an eye for goal, but the guy just is very good at making sure he's in a position to threaten the attack, even though that's not traditionally his responsibility. So those three guys have been the three people that I've been impressed with, and I think should probably get more publicity.
You heard it here first. Brian, you've been on the show before? Is this your first time?
Sorry?
Have you been on the show before? I feel like you have, but maybe it's not true.
I don't think I have.
Oh, then we have to do the lightning round with you. But before we do it, let's get a prediction for this weekend's game.
Oh, score prediction. I tend to do, when I actually have to do score predictions, I tend to be pretty conservative just because I never know what's going to really happen. And of course, Indy didn't make that really easy for me last week because now I got all these high expectations in my head. I still think defensively this team has a lot of learn, so I can easily see this being I'm stuck between like a 1-1 or a 2-2 because I feel like there will be goals. I think it's really going to, for Indy, winning this game is just going to really depend defensively because at this point you're not worried about their attack if you're Indy. You're kind of worried about their defensive ability because it's kind of like watching six guys walk to the same door at once. So if they can stay consistent and square up defensively, I think this team has a chance of winning. But I tend to stay conservative, so we'll go with like a 1-1 draw.
Okay, Joe, what's your prediction?
I'm gonna go with a 2-2 draw.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that exact same scoreline. I'm going to say it's 2-2 draw. We all say draw, so obviously it will be a lopsided loss in one direction or the other.
Likely.
Yeah. Okay, the lightning round. Are you ready?
I'm excited.
Okay, popcorn, yes or no?
Yes.
Marvel or DC?
Ooh, see, I'm a big Batman guy. I'm not ashamed to say I have a Batman mask and a Batman onesie, but I feel like I'll get shamed if I don't say Marvel. Though now that I'm looking at it, I have a Superman thing right next to my desk in my office, so I'm not even sure how to feel, but I'll go with Marvel.
Oh man, Schuster and Bob Kane they're so upset right now. Adorned with the DC and calling for Marvel. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Ooh, weird thing. I have a Star Trek board game that I got when I was I think I was in college, but it was a board game I played with my cousin. You guys really don't need to hear these stories. But I'm mainly a Star Wars guy.
Okay.
Favorite team to play in FIFA as?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it's a cheap answer. Weirdly, I have two. It's Man United, just because I hate being fair to my friends when I play them in FIFA. But also, weirdly, I enjoy playing as the U.S. men's national team.
Okay.
Because it's just fun.
I mean, look, if you play with the lineups that are coming out now, that's certainly a lot more fun than last year.
Oh, yes.
All right, last but not least, you were on death row. What is your final meal?
Oh, that's tough. It's going to be ironic because I'll probably die one day from heart issues. So I'll just say a very large-sized Baconator from Wendy's.
Oh, wow.
I
can get
I
down
don't
with
know
the
what it
hamburger.
is. I have, whenever my wife and I, neither of us want to cook, she'll be coming home from work and she'll call me and she'll go, "Hey, what do you want for dinner?" Yada, yada, yada. And that's usually my go-to. I don't know what it is. I think they probably put some drug in there or something. But no, it's just good. But yeah, probably that or a giant steak. Something that's probably going to kill me one day.
I have quoted this line from Malcolm in the Middle more than once. Fats and oils are the vehicles upon which flavor travels.
That's eloquent.
Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was a honor, and I appreciate it.
That was a tremendous amount of knowledge from Brian Cook. Great to have him on the show, as always. We've got one question today. It comes from Ben Mines Stan, appropriately. He's looking for an injury update on Ben Mines. And I was also wondering about this. Word is he is practicing and available. But remember, he's an MLS squad player. So even if he was injured, we wouldn't necessarily see him on the USL injury list. But apparently he's not. He's just not making the game day squad right now. And, RB2 has had Andy Ivan, Derek Etienne, and Marcus Epps kind of rotating in and out. Jared Stroud's been playing on the left and in the middle. So it's tough right now, I think, for a guy like Mines who is not above any of those other guys in terms of a depth chart. So it's just, I think, still being patient with young Ben Mines. Despite his breakout performance last season, he still is a young guy that needs a lot of time to develop.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, they've kind of been bringing down a lot of guys, and that's kind of cut into his playing time and making the squad because, John can only choose so many guys. But I think I don't see a reason to rush him back yet either, because he has had a couple injuries in the past that have kind of ended. Well, he had one last year that kind of ended his season basically. So I think they also maybe want to make sure he's fully fit before they get him back out there.
Oh, very, very true. And Ben tends to get targeted by other teams. He's sort of a little guy, and he's tricky and a pain in the butt to defend against. So I think they play him pretty physically, and usually works out. But Ben comes off worse for the wear. That brings us. That brings us to the end of another episode of Raising Bulls. If you want to follow us, I'm at _Joe Goldstein.
I am at JSteen15.
And if you'd like to follow the show, and we hope you do, we are at Raising Bull Cast. That's one bull, Raising Bull Cast. And of course, that's on Twitter. You can follow Joe's work and my work at Red Bulls News Network at rbnn.us and RB News Network on Twitter. You can find the show on raisingbulls.com, where we put all of our episodes. You can even send questions there to questions@raisingbulls.com. The show is on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. And if we're not, let us know, and we will work on getting on that platform. Of course, we're part of the Beautiful Game Network at bgn.fm. They cover MLS, USL, Premier League, NWSL, and they have a ton of great shows. I'm just going through the USL shows, guys. There's too many to tell them all. Sock Takes, which is Indy 11, the Other Football Podcast for Las Vegas, 901 Soccer Pod, Speedway Soccer, the Curse Cast, 6 Point Weekend, Off Pitch Podcast, Orange and Black Soccer Cast, and Rising as One. Joe, that last one, what do you think they're talking about on Rising as One?
How good Junior Fleming is playing out there.
There you go. That's not what I expected you to say, but okay. I was just teasing about what team. But yes, Junior Fleming's great week from him. 2 goals and an assist, and nice goals while we're at it. Last but not least, I want to thank our sponsor, Golden Goal Press, the best choice for you to get custom shirts, hats, mugs, and other items for just yourself or your organization. Check out their amazing products at a fraction of the price of other places at goldengoalpress.com. And we'd like to thank our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. For myself, Rece Buckmaster, Brian Cook, and Joe Steen, thank you very much and have a great night. Don't clap, you're trying
Is the sound coming okay?
Yeah, I think so.